Hi, it's Sarah, and I have a fun recipe for you today. My camera's a little shaky, sorry about that. So today we're making a very traditional old recipe. This is a very old recipe for Christmas. And this is the only time of the year I make these, but they are tasty and they make a really pretty cookie for a cookie tray. They're extremely easy, and some of you may have heard about these. But most people have never heard of this. So it's actually, like I said, an old recipe. And this was one of my husband's mom's recipes that she made every year for cookie trays. Unfortunately, she's no longer with us. So we make these once a year, and I wanted to share them with you. So they are an oatmeal lace cookie. I don't even know if you can really call them a cookie because it ends up being more like a candy and not like a fluffy cookie. So these are super thin. So when I take a picture of these, just know that I might call it a cookie, but it's really more like a candy than anything. So first of all, you need a saucepan on the stove, and I'm got it at about medium heat. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one stick of butter, and I'm going to melt that in the bottom of a pan. And I'm going to take 1 cup of dark brown sugar. So make sure you're using dark. Add that. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a very thick paste. So let me get this added. Okay, so I've got the brown sugar going in there. And I'm going to make a wooden spoon. I'm going to just make a paste. So it doesn't need to boil. It doesn't need to simmer. We're just basically trying to get this warm. To melt the butter and make like a nice thick paste with it. Okay, so while that's finishing, or the butter's finishing melting, I'm gonna get the rest of the stuff ready. So we need flour. We need 2 tablespoons of flour. So we're gonna get that ready. I gotta go grab my tablespoon, hold on. Okay, so I've got get that ready. Oh, and then I need vanilla. So we're gonna get that ready. And we're gonna need 1 egg. So I've got a large egg, and then we're gonna use 1.5 cups of old-fashioned oatmeal. If you can find old-fashioned or thick cut oatmeal, it works a lot better than just regular quick oatmeal, because these cookies will spread. I keep calling them a cookie, but it's more like a candy. And they're just really, really super thin. So the oats is kind of what holds it together. And that's all that is in this recipe. So as you're watching this or making this, if you remember your grandma making these cookies, go ahead and comment, because my husband's mom would have been in her 80s probably right now, 80, 85. And he remembers her making these, the 30, 40 years ago. Okay, so we're getting this almost to the paste. Okay, so it doesn't need to boil. Basically, we're just trying to get it to a paste like that. Okay, so now I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons of flour. I had that one a little overflowing. Okay, we're going to mix that in. Okay, I'm going to turn it off. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off and take it off of the heat like that. Okay, so I just want this to cool just a tad because we're going to put the egg in it. It can still be warm, just not piping hot, so we don't want to cook the egg. Okay, so the directions to this recipe say switch to a fork. And I think it's because, I don't have anybody to ask about this, but I think we switch to a fork so we don't completely smash the oats when we're putting them in. Okay. Forgot to add the vanilla. So we're going to add the vanilla like that. Okay, we're going to add the egg. So just crack the egg right into the pan. Use your fork, mix that in. Okay, so we got the egg. Wish I could show you what this looks like on the inside. I don't have an overhead camera. And then we're going to add 1.5 cups. Oh, where's my cup? 1.5 cups of the oats. So I've got one. I've got my half cup here too. Okay, so that's 1.5. Okay, lightly mix those in like this. You can really see kind of what this looks like. These are just really fun to make. They're a little bit different than the traditional flour sugar cookie for Christmas time. All right, so this is what it looks like. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to scoop 1 tablespoon of the batter onto a baking sheet. And we're going to make sure there's 2 to 3 inches in between each one. So these do take a little bit of time to cook. So the oats are going to need to be in a single layer. Okay, so I'm going to grab a cookie sheet and show you. You can line your cookie sheet with parchment paper. I have this cookie sheet, nothing sticks to it, so I'm not going to do that. Plus, I'm out of parchment paper at the moment. Okay, so tablespoon size, okay? We have our oven preheated to 350 degrees. I'm going to put this down a little bit so you can see it. Okay, so we're going to take my cookie scoop, which might be dirty. It is. Okay, so tablespoon size. So like here's a tablespoon. Okay. So I'm going to take this tablespoon size, put it on my cookie sheet like that. Okay, and then I'm going to spread it out like this so that the oats are in. I'm going to actually probably need to use my fingers to get it Okay, so you want them in a single so that they're not on top of each other. I actually think I'm going to use a spoon. I think that'll be a lot easier. I'm going to use a big spoon. Okay. So spread them out like that, single layer. We'll just keep doing that. And you don't want to give them lots of space because they're going to spread out like that. Okay, kind of see what I'm doing? The spoon works much better. Okay, I'm only going to put 6 on this cookie sheet. Okay, so then spread them out. So basically what we're doing is we're scooping and then we're spreading them out. And you might need to use your fingers to give, so they go back into like a round shape. I just think these are so fun to make. All right. Okay. So then our oven's at 350 degrees. We are going to bake these. And remember, they're going to spread out 8 minutes at 350 degrees until the edges of the cookies start to look golden brown. Okay? And they should come right off as soon as they're done. So it's kind of like a candy, but it's like, these are super flat, thin cookies. Okay, so 8 minutes. I'll probably fit 9 on a cookie sheet. I did 6 because I'm on camera trying to make sure that they turn out good. So I'm going to keep doing this with my other cookie sheets, and then in 8 minutes, I'll pull them out and I'll show you what they look like. Okay, I just pulled these out of the oven. So now remember, these are right out of the oven. So I went 9 minutes. And so look how nice and thin those are. and I'm gonna let them cool on the pan. And then when I take them off, I'll come back and I'll show you because I think they're gonna be too hot. So you might want to use like an offset spatula to get these off. That isn't gonna work in there. But I'm gonna let them cool because they need to harden together. But I just wanted to show you what they look like right out of the oven so you can kind of gauge what they need to be looking for. And obviously they're not gonna slide all over because they're like more of a crispy cookie. And so I'm gonna let that cool. I'll come back one more time and show you what they look like when they're cooled enough that I can hold it up to the camera and show you. So I have a lot of people tell me that they like to see the finished product. And a lot of times I'll end here, post the video and the recipe, and then move on to the next one. But some people like to really see what they look like up close. So I'm gonna add that to the end of this video. Okay, as promised, this is the lace cookie. So what I had to do is I actually threw these in the freezer for probably about 10 minutes. They were much easier to get off the pan, and then they're like perfectly right now. So I'm gonna add that to the recipe. You're gonna put them in the freezer on the pan for about 10 minutes, and then they pop right off the pan, and they have this, so they're called lace because it looks like lace. Like they're nice and thin. So these are very thin cookies. Look at that. Like that. But they are really yummy. They're nice and soft and buttery, like that. So I think you're gonna absolutely love these. They're just a little bit different cookie, so you have to kind of go out of your comfort zone a little bit. So it's like a oatmeal cookie candy. So that's basically what it looks like, and they are thin. So, you know, for somebody that wants a little bit different cookie, or somebody that enjoys a thin cookie, these are perfect. So I think you're really going to enjoy these, and give them a try. But I'll amend the recipe, just put on there that I threw them in the freezer to get them off the pan a lot easier. Or if you want to use parchment paper, that would probably work too. And then you can just pick up the parchment paper, put them in the freezer until you get a nice crisp cookie, and then enjoy.